What's up, everybody? Welcome inside the 7th floor of the Stadium Club seats of Ryan Field. We tried to do this outside. The camera fell over because of the wind. We tried to do it in the tunnel. It was really windy and they were cleaning up the tunnel. Now we're in the President's Club, out of the elements. Ohio State probably wishes it was out of the elements in its 21-7 win over Northwestern. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. No Tim May here. Tim, get well soon. We're really hoping that we see you on Monday for the Monday after. But for now, we're in Evanston. Again, Andy, I'm Spencer. Andy, let's talk 21-7 Ohio State win. Anything but impressive. Anything but convincing. But Ohio State took care of business in a ultra windy, weird, and sometimes wet environment. And I think Ryan Day said it best. Ohio State's just happy to get home.
Yeah, winds were anywhere between 25 to 30 miles per hour. There was some rain coming down sideways during the game. And really, 21 of the 28 points were scored when the wind was at the offense's back.
Yep.
So that was a huge factor today in terms of field position. C.J. Stroud, though, more rushing yards than passing yards. I don't think we'll ever say that again. 79 rushing yards, 76 passing yards, and set up 2 touchdowns, 2 of Ohio State's 3 touchdowns, including the one that put the game out of reach with a 44-yard run.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud playing a game about 20 miles from where Justin Fields plays his home games now. Maybe doing his best Justin Fields impression with the Bears right now. Running the ball a lot more than he's passing the ball. C.J., that's what C.J. Stroud had to do on Saturday against Northwestern, as Ohio State really struggled through the air. Northwestern did struggle through the air, but Northwestern simply didn't really try to throw the ball a whole lot. Probably smart, because the winds are still howling. I'm watching a Northwestern and an Ohio State flag in the north end zone of Ryan Field just continue to whip south to north. It is a very windy day. But for C.J. Stroud to pull the ball and run, Ryan Day, you mentioned it on an early video. I'll let you kind of take over from here. Ryan Day said they were trying to have numbers equate. Northwestern did a good job with that. Ohio State finally realized they needed to do that. And once C.J. Stroud started pulling the ball and running, Ohio State's offense started clicking.
Yeah, when you can't really throw the ball, they're going to stack the box in terms of defense, and it's going to be hard to run the ball. So in order to do that, again, going back to equating numbers, for Northwestern, that meant motioning out the quarterback and having direct snaps go to either Evan Hull or Cam Porter, their running back duo. Eventually, they instituted a Wildcat package where it was just Evan Hull taking snaps and very fittingly running the Wildcats for the Northwestern Wildcats. And it worked pretty well for Northwestern. And eventually, as Spencer noted, Ohio State started to play a little bit of copycat, not with the Wildcat, but by using quarterback run. And that was design quarterback runs, most of which were zone read runs for C.J. Stroud. So
it's a side of C.J. we haven't seen in 2 years, since the Michigan State game, where he had, I think, a 60-some-yard touchdown run late in a blowout win over Michigan State. He didn't really need to do that, but he was a freshman, and he showed off a little bit of speed. Well, last year, Ohio State fans were clamoring for him to run the ball. This year, they've been clamoring for him to pick up yards when he needed to. He did that today. And that's a side of C.J. Stroud that we haven't seen. It's a side of this Ohio State offense we haven't seen, and I'm going to write about it at lettermenrow.com. Andy, moving forward, C.J. Stroud has now shown he can do it. And the numbers are going to be a lot harder to equate now for opponents when you have to respect C.J. Stroud doing that. Because if you collapse on the running backs like teams have been doing all year, that leaves lanes open for a capable, not a stellar running quarterback, but a capable running quarterback in C.J. Stroud to make you pay if you don't at least respect what he can do with his feet. And then it also opens up the idea of the RPO where C.J. could fake it, keep the ball, and then throw over the top. The playbook becomes much bigger at this point in the season for Ohio State. Now that they've shown quarterback run, that play is in their arsenal. Teams have to respect it.
Yeah, but let's talk about the traditional run game a little bit too, because
for sure,
huge concerns there coming into this week. We heard tons of questions to Ryan Day, players, about the confidence in the run game, especially running inside, and it just didn't work too well today. There were a lot of short yardage situations where Ohio State didn't convert. That's a big reason why they were 0 of 8 on third down in the first half. And quite frankly, it just didn't look a whole lot better. Now, towards the end, that number of rushing yards was a little bit inflated, 1, because of CJ, and 2, because, well, in the garbage time fourth quarter, they did run a little bit on a Northwestern defense that, I don't want to say checked out, but the game was over. And so I think that number looks a little bit better than it actually was, because that was still a concern today.
Absolutely. And, Miyan Williams, I think, was stuffed on back-to-back plays. 3rd and 1, can't get a yard. 4th and 1, can't get a yard. That's 2 straight plays. All you have to do is get a yard on the worst team in the Big Ten. And I'm not going to continue to pour it on Northwestern. This is a team that, no matter what, plays hard for its coach. It should not be taken lightly, ever. But this is the worst team in the Big Ten. You've got to be able to get a yard. And if you don't get it the first time, you need to be able to get it the second time. And if you're going to want to win a national championship, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, those need to be money downs. You've got to be able to convert on those. And Ohio State couldn't do that in the first half, and that is a concern moving forward, like you said.
And it's not just all offensive line. Sometimes it's Miyan,
Absolutely.
or whoever's carrying the ball, and they bounce outside when there's probably a lane inside, or they're not patient enough to wait for that lane to open up. So sometimes, it is the guards, and they're not holding the blocks long enough, or maybe they're not climbing to the second level and getting a linebacker comes crashing in. But there's also times where it's the running backs that aren't having the vision they need to succeed.
Yep, absolutely. As I see a trash can making its way across the pavilion in the north end zone, we're about to wrap this thing up. Before we do, though, Northwestern, again, I don't want to pile on, but this is not a particularly great offense. The Ohio State defense, I will give credit to, did what it needed to do late in the game to get stops, 4th downs, making sure that Northwestern stayed out of the end zone except for that very first possession that they had that they put together. Not the first possession, but the first one they put together for a touchdown. Beyond that, the Ohio State defense really stood tall, was able to kind of limit big plays, bend, don't break. Jim Knowles talked about not liking that term at all. He doesn't even want to bend. Some games you have to bend. You just can't break. And the Ohio State defense did not break. It bent pretty hard today. And to hold Northwestern out of the end zone in a game like this, when it could have been a little more dicey than it even was, I think Ohio State's defense, in the end, deserves a little bit of credit, particularly the defensive line in the second half. I thought played a lot better.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Northwestern did play its butt off today.
Yes.
I mean, Brendan Sullivan as a quarterback took some licks running the ball, and he got up again and again and again. And he was a big part of that offense. And Evan Hull and Cam Porter were great for Northwestern, and that game plan of really coming in with probably a game plan that better fit the elements than Ohio State had.
Yep.
And it showed early, but as you mentioned, the Ohio State defense buckled down when it mattered most. Tommy Eichenberg had 13 total tackles, 10 solos. I think it's his 3rd game this year with 10 or more tackles. He's been a stud this year, came up again today, and as you mentioned, the defensive line was strong late. Yeah,
it's a credit to JT Tuimoloau, who was, again, very good. He almost had a pick 6 right off the bat.
Could have changed the whole game.
Yeah, Zach Harrison, who met one of the running backs right in on the outside on what could have been a big play had he not stayed in position, stayed in his lane. He's playing really good football right now. Those guys inside are starting to kind of find their groove, even like Jerron Cage and Tyler Williams, who admittedly I've been a little hard on this year. I thought they played well in the second half, got a push, and didn't really give up a whole lot to this Northwestern running game. Ohio State, like Ryan Day said, just happy to get out here with a win. And this place, as windy as it is, not always the easiest place to play. It was a bring your own energy Saturday morning here in Evanston. Not just for Ohio State, maybe for Andy and I as well. Matt Parker down on the field. It was windy, it was rainy, it was pretty cold once you got the wind on you. But Ohio State escapes with a 21-7 win. Andy Backstrom, I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the latest practice report presented by Byers Auto. For all of us here in the Northwestern club seating, we will see you back in Columbus on Monday for the Monday after in the Horseshoe.